Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We've got special guest Paul Caputo here. If anybody is interested in sports design, logos, identities, alternate identities, this is the guy. As far as I can tell, knows more about this kind of stuff than anybody else that hosts a podcast about it. So, just want to say hi, Paul. How you doing tonight?
I muted myself for your intro there. So it's
Oh,
John, I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm thrilled to be here.
awesome. So you are in Fort Collins, Colorado, is that correct?
I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado, home of the Foxes.
And just for the geographically unprepared, where is that in terms of the state of Colorado or in relation to Denver?
It's always wild for me to say this as a person who grew up in the Philadelphia area and thought I'd be on the East Coast for my whole life. Fort Collins, Colorado is about 40 miles from Wyoming, about an hour north of Denver.
Okay. And so you grew up in Pennsylvania near Philadelphia?
Yeah, my father is a retired professor from Villanova University. So Villanova basketball was second to the Philadelphia Phillies in my list of sports rooting interests.
So who are your favorite players growing up then?
Oh, it's funny because we had Steve Carlton and Mike Schmidt and Bob Boone and Larry Boa. I was a Manny Trio guy. I loved Manny Trio, the second baseman who committed very, very few errors in his career. And Von Hayes. I always loved every time Von Hayes got on, he would bunt his way on and then he would steal second and third. It was like hitting a triple every time. So those were my guys when I was growing up with the Phillies.
Nice. Manny Trio was a Cubs legend. We
Sure.
are the Chicago chapter, and he has the distinction of actually being one of only six players ever to be a single shy of a cycle. Three different times he was, and he unfortunately didn't have a chance to go for it. So yeah,
Missed it that much.
by that much. And I remember Von Hayes as being a Cub killer. So
Ah,
whatever, right?
well, we traded you guys Ryan Sandberg, so if I think for Ivan De Jesus, if I recall correctly. So we did you that favor.
It was a good deal. I think the Cubs got Larry Bow in that trade too. So
Is that right?
worked
Wow.
worked out okay. Yeah.
And that's how
So
come the Phillies and the Cubs have both won so many World Series.
they sure have. At least I've gotten to see one in my lifetime, so I'm good there.
Hmm.
So, if you're not familiar with Paul's podcast, it is called Baseball by Design, and it basically, are you able to see the screen?
We got your whole screen. We got your notes and
Okay.
everything.
Oh, perfect.
There
Okay.
you go. Now we got it.
Okay, excellent. So, um, you could see by the logo that the main theme of the Baseball by Design podcast is helmets filled with ice cream. And the one thing that I'm always curious about, and I wanted to ask you from the get-go, are there any Easter eggs in the logo?
So this logo was created by Dan Simon, who is notable in minor league baseball circles for having created many, many logos. He is he's responsible for the Savannah Bananas. That's probably his most well-known logo. He's done Super Bowl logos. He worked for the Dodgers for several years, so he's been involved in graphic design in a lot of ways. Um, let's see, Cedar Rapids Kernels, the South Bend Cubs, if we're talking about the Cubs. He was in the news recently for one that he did for the Danville Dairy Daddies. That one made a little bit of a splash out there in the world. So Dan Simon created this brand for me, which I really appreciated. I would say the closest thing that we have to an Easter egg here is because it is a podcast about logos and design. It is the pencil at the bottom underlining the word podcast is meant to be a reference to the fact that it's about graphic design. Um, I, of course, am an ice cream fan. I love the ice cream helmets. One of the reasons I love them is because they have logos on them, right? And I have a whole collection of them out there in the room behind me where I've got a shelf with almost 600 helmets on it. And I love when people come over because the first thing they do is they go to the helmets and they start looking at all the logos, asking me questions about the different teams. And so the helmets are a great conversation starter about minor league baseball logos. And then, of course, rainbow jimmies on the helmet. That's my order of choice. I'll get the swirl ice cream with the rainbow jimmies, and so that's my favorite.
So the white part of the ice cream, that's not an E for Eagles or anything then?
It is not. No, it
No.
is
Okay.
not. No,
Okay.
there. Dan doesn't really traffic in Easter eggs, so I think he was just trying to make something that looked like soft serve ice cream.
Nice. So you are the minor league correspondent for sportslogos.net. What was it that first got you interested in logos or designs and identities of minor league teams?
Well, it's really the intersection of three of my interests. My professional and educational background is in graphic design. I have an MFA in visual communications from Virginia Commonwealth University. And I went to the University of Richmond as an undergrad, where I got a degree in journalism. And so, sort of writing and graphic design, they're my academic background. Grew up with baseball, and it was always part of my life, and I always enjoyed. My parents would laugh at me like as a kid all the way up until now as a supposed adult. Every piece of clothing I have on has a logo on it of some sort. I always loved the logos, and they would laugh at me. Do you have any T-shirts that don't have writing on them? And so the baseball logos, design, and ice cream. Those are three passions of mine, and I think that the minor league baseball logos tell a story, about the places where they play. And my professional, my day job, I've worked for 23 years for an association here in Colorado called the National Association for Interpretation. It's not language interpretation. It's not services for the deaf. It's not interpretive dance. It's interpretation in the sense of we call it heritage interpretation. So, a park ranger at a national park, a tour guide at a museum, a docent at a museum, if they work at like parks, nature centers, historical sites, that sort of thing, they are interpreting that resource to you, right? Like, so an interpreter at the Grand Canyon telling you about the layers of rock in the Grand Canyon is interpreting the Grand Canyon to you. And so I find minor league baseball logos to be very interpretive, right? Like the first one that I wrote about for sportslogos.net was the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. They're called the Iron Pigs because of the pig iron that's forged in the steel mills of eastern Pennsylvania. And so what I found was all of these logos tell a story about the places where they live. So if you think baseball, graphic design, and interpretation and ice cream, those are really four things that I love that these minor league baseballs accomplish for me.
And the site is awesome because not only does it do Major League and it's got all the sports, but even minor leagues by league, you can go through and it gives you a history of the evolution of the logo and the marks or whatever you would call them too. So, is there something about your background that you're more drawn to older, more classic designs, the newer ones, somewhere in between? I mean, there's obviously this proliferation of these wacky identities and
Yeah.
alternate identities and things like that now.
I, I, it sounds like a cop out, right? But I love them all. I love the alternate identities. I love the ones where they're pushing the envelope by being silly with them. But I also love, and from my perspective, an old classic like say the Portland Sea Dogs, going way back, a team like the Buffalo Bisons or the Durham Bulls, the Toledo Mud Hens, all those, the sort of classic minor league teams that had unique nicknames and brands that stuck around for a while. The thing is that there just weren't that many of them, right? Like, I mean, I just named three of them, the Bisons, the Durham Bulls, and the Mud Hens. You start running out of names that have been around, for longer than 40, 50 years, pretty quickly. And so the new ones, the new ones really, in the last, like, say 15, 20 years have really gotten into this trend of like picking on something hyper local and extrapolating on it and creating a brand out of it. So I feel like the new ones are doing a really good job of telling these stories that we're talking about, being interpretive, if you will. But I have a San Francisco Seals T-shirt just because I love the old brand. So it's I do. Well, I say I love them all. The ones that I don't love are the ones that, in my mind, don't tell any kind of story because the teams are named for their parent clubs. I realize I realize I'm talking now to the Chicago chapter here, and the Cubs have two, not one, but two affiliates named for the Cubs. You got the Iowa Cubs and the South Bend Cubs. The South Bend Cubs, they used to be the South Bend Silverhawks. And Studebaker was based in South Bend, as I'm sure you all know. And Silverhawk was a model of a Studebaker car. South Bend Silverhawks was such a great name for that team. And so I'm sad about the fact that they moved away from the Silverhawks and to the Cubs. So I love them all, old, new, just not the ones named for their parent clubs.
And so that's kind of a little bit of what your writing and your podcast and everything kind of encapsulates, right? Is you're telling the history of America kind of through these baseball teams. And when you say hyper local, you're talking about industries or animals or something that is native to that area that has a real connection to that area. So,
Typically, sorry,
no, go ahead.
I was going to say typically yes. Usually, yeah, usually that is the case. Every once in a while, it's not as hyper local. It's just sort of vaguely local, like the Sacramento River Cats. The Sacramento River is right there. Cats, there's no particular connection between Cats and Sacramento, right? Like so, the ones who I think are doing it well are the ones that really are getting pretty local.
And so part of what the website also does is have articles that these are a couple that you wrote recently in the summer about alternate identities, cone jesters in Las Vegas, or the Altoona curve to play with a county cricket. So is this kind of the next step in that hyper local? I don't know about cone jesters, but is is cricket something that's really local to Altoona, Pennsylvania? I don't know.
Well, the Altoona one and this one, I had to do some digging on this one to figure out what it was all about. The cone jesters, the aviators, they're one of maybe four or five teams that have made the joke that like, oh, our roads are always under construction, so we're going to do an alternate identity based on the fact that we are, that there's a lot of traffic cones around here. So that the aviators, they're that one's not necessarily super unique. The Altoona Curve, their Blair County Crickets is a tribute to an old ballpark, like dating back all the way to like the late 1800s, that actually started as a field where the local cricket teams, like the traveling cricket teams who would travel by railroad, often, amateur cricket teams would actually play in the from memory, I don't remember exactly what it was called, but it was the Blair County Cricket Stadium or something like that, right? Like so the cricket in the logo is and a lot of teams will do this, right? Like the Hartford Yard Goats are a great example of a team. Their logo is a goat, but yard goat is a railroad term. And the reason they're the yard goats is because they have the Hartford Railroad through there. The Hartford, the New Haven, Hartford, New York. I think that's the name of the line, but it goes right through Hartford, and a yard goat is like a rail as a locomotive switcher, and they're the yard goats because of the locomotive industry or the railroad industry. Um, so they just did like they sort of turned it on its head and they made their logo an actual goat instead of a locomotive switcher. The Curve doing this with crickets is exactly that, right? Like it's the reason they're the Blair County Crickets is because there was a cricket field there, a famous cricket field, at least famous in its time. Hard to find anything about it now. It took a little bit of research to figure out what exactly they were doing with this because their press release didn't give me a lot of information. But yeah, so there's nothing special about crickets per se to Altoona, Pennsylvania, but there is something special about the game of cricket. The Curve themselves are named after a famous hairpin railroad. That's another railroad industry term here. Is the Altoona Curve was an engineering marvel in Altoona, Pennsylvania. It was a hairpin turn through the Allegheny Mountains.
And so how do you get the information about these name changes or alternate identities? Do you have your finger on the pulse? People are contacting you. How does that work?
A little bit of both. I have relationships with the designers who are actually doing this work, and so sometimes I'll get a heads up before they happen. I will say all of the designers I work with are very, very careful about not revealing information they're not supposed to. So even, I have professional and friendship relationships with designers going back, a decade or more. And if they're not supposed to reveal information to me, they will not. And they're quite good about that. But they often will work with the team to say, hey, Paul writes for sportslogos.net. If we give him advanced access, he'll be able to write up a better story. If not, these things are all over social media, right? Like there are a couple of accounts that I follow out there that the moment these are out there, they've got them on social media, and so I can usually write them up within a day or two of being released.
And so talking about writing, I think was it 2018 that this was first published, the story behind the nickname?
I believe so, yes.
And so this is the origins of 100 classic, contemporary, and wacky minor league baseball team names. What was the process like to kind of put a book together like this?
Well, honestly, it was this is a collection of articles. So I wrote a series for sportslogos.net, and I've moved away from writing that series, and instead I'm now featuring these teams on podcasts because I realized my favorite thing was the conversations with these teams, and the transcribing the interviews and writing these articles was less of my favorite thing. Um, but this was a collection of essentially 100 representative articles from the series that I wrote for sportslogos.net called The Story Behind the Nickname. And so I did not actually sit down to write this book. What I did was I got Chris's permission to collect these articles in a book and essentially self-publish it on Amazon. So for me, I like design, and so for me, sort of formatting the interior layout and collecting all of these into a print format was really fun. But the process of writing this book, by the time I decided to do the book, the writing had actually already been done in piecemeal over the course of 100 weeks for the sportslogos.net website.
So that was pretty easy to put the book together then
It
after
was
the
actually, yeah, it was fun doing all the layout by
fact.
myself. I have since since really stopping that story behind the nickname series, um, because like I said, I'm doing it more on the podcast now than I am for sportslogos.net. What I'm doing on sportslogos.net is more of what you were showing previously, where I'll have shorter news articles about alternate identities or rebrands or that sort of thing.
And is this the Modesto Nuts? Is that the cover
No, it was
after?
actually the defunct Wichita Wingnuts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
I fancy myself to be the world's foremost photographer at triple peanuts found at ball games. So I was a little bit sad to see, I think Modesto, it was the last year, if I'm not mistaken, of the franchise.
Modesto is no more. They're moving to Southern California.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
It is a
Love
bummer.
love
They're
their hood.
getting they're getting a Pioneer League team, so I don't know if maybe they would keep that Nuts brand. That Modesto Nuts brand is a another one from Dan Simon, so I've mentioned his name a couple of times.
All right. And if there is um a way that you could pass along to Dan making a triple peanut, uh part of that logo, should it go on to the next team, that would be fantastic. But
I will be happy. I speak with Dan regularly, so I will be happy to pass that message along on behalf of you, John.
thank you, appreciate it. And that kind of segues nicely into the Baseball by Design podcast. Your book, you said, kind of was the written version of this. And for anybody that hasn't listened to Paul's podcast, I want to say he's probably the hardest working man in podcasting, because every single episode, there's at least an interview with somebody from the team. Dan Simon is always on. A lot of times you'll have either Ranger Amy or some other person talk about a particular animal. You might have somebody talk about the history of the place or the history of a certain thing that's part of the identity. And then Dan Simon will always come back at the end of the episode to try and stump you with a question. So when you're putting these episodes together, do you have 45 different things in the hopper right now where you're trying to, well, as soon as I'm able to talk to so and so, I can put this one together, or do you do them one at a time?
No, I try to bank about 4 to 5 weeks of interviews. Just because, as you say, now I feel bad because the last two episodes about the Quebec Capitale and the Lincoln Salt Dogs, I've only actually had Dan and one other guest, um, and that's just a function sometimes of the designer just isn't around anymore. I usually try to get the designer on or someone who has knowledge of the conversations around the initial logos. Um, and then I will try to get very often, and I'm glad I brought up my day job with the National Association for Interpretation because very often I'll try to get a subject matter expert who is knowledgeable about, say, the you brought up Ranger Amy. She'll come on. She's our wildlife correspondent, and so if there's an episode about a team that has manatees in the logo, the old Brevard County Manatees are a team I'd love to do an episode on. Ranger Amy will come and she'll talk about, like, here's what makes manatees an interesting baseball mascot. I have historians on who will come on. I had a park ranger from Mount Rainier National Park in California, or sorry, in Washington, when I had the Tacoma Rainiers episode. And so I usually will try to get a subject matter expert on. Sometimes that person is not, an interpreter per se, but one of my favorite episodes was on the Kannapolis Cannonballers, who are named for Cannon Mills in Kannapolis, which is where Kannapolis got its name because it was Cannon Mills, and they called it Cannon Appolis, like Appolis for city, and then they just squished it together into Kannapolis. When they rebranded, when the estate of Dale Earnhardt Jr. had to sell the team, they had to rebrand their team. They couldn't keep using this image of Dale Earnhardt Jr. as their brand, and so they decided they were going to do something with cannons, and they became the Cannon Ballers. And I was able to get, for that episode of the podcast, a guy named David the Bullet Smith, who is the Guinness record holder for human cannonballing. And I got him on to talk about human cannonballing and why cannonballers would make a great baseball mascot. And so every once in a while, I'm able to track down someone, super fun. I had a NASA, like a high ranking, a high level NASA engineer on for the Rocket City Trash Pandas episode, and so that was fun. Recently, the Bradenton Marauders episode, I had someone, the curator from the Pirate Museum in St. Augustine, Florida. So I don't know. I always feel like this, bringing someone on who is not from the baseball world, but who can add that perspective about the subject matter of the logo really drives home, like, this is why that a team from this place would be called this thing. So I think it adds perspective.
Yeah, and I think SABR in a lot of circles probably to a normal baseball fan might seem like, oh, these are the people that are responsible for advanced statistics and sabermetrics and so forth. But most of the people that I know on this call are into baseball history and
Hmm.
probably are interested in other local history too. And that's what I find so amazing about your podcast is not only do you get into the history of the club and ownership issues and the design of the logo and development of the identity, but also the local history, like you just talked about. And I think it's kind of funny, like you said, unfortunately, the last two episodes were only you and Dan. I like how the mission statement for your podcast here says telling the story of America. And then the last episode is in Quebec, but whatever, right?
uh,
But
yeah, maybe I should switch it to telling the story of North America.
North America.
I've had the Ottawa Titans on. I've done the Vancouver Canadians. So I'm coming up on my 200th episode, and I've had probably at least at least 4 or 5 episodes on Canadian teams. So I think I might have to change the tagline there.
And then for somebody like me who is not practiced in graphic design and didn't study it or work in it, I've picked up some terminology like roundels or
Oh yeah.
iconography and things like that. But for anybody that hasn't listened yet, too, you make the graphic design part of it very approachable. And it's a lot of it is just looking at a design like this and thinking, yeah, I kind of like how that looks. I don't know. Is there more to it than that? Are you seeing more than, yeah, I like how it looks? Are you picking it apart kind of from your professional perspective?
I I try to limit the real, like, graphic design nerdery. Um it's I love typography. I could talk to you about letter spacing and kerning all day long. Color theory, the a lot of these minor league teams will upend some of the color theory of sports branding because sports branding is meant to be sort of in your face. Even my logo here, blue and orange, complementary colors, bold typography, that sort of thing. And a lot of these minor league teams, they're not trying to be in your face. They're trying to do something fun, right? Like so they may use cool colors instead of warm colors, or sort of whimsical typography instead of real bold typography. I think that it's possible to really drive people away by getting too into the weeds about that. Dan and I will often get into the weeds, and I'll just have to cut it out because I'm like, nobody wants to listen to this, right? Like nobody wants us to talk about the letter spacing problems with the Wilson Warbirds new logo. So very often I'll have to cut some of that stuff out, but I do love talking about it, which is a problem. And yeah, Mike makes the point. By the way, I have the chat open here. I see a question from Anthony Salazar that I'd love to answer at some point, and then so I don't know if that's my job or your job, John, to be watching that. But Mike makes the point. Not many minor league teams in Canada these days. There are some certainly in the Frontier League. That we used to have the old Can-Am League, the Canadian American League, but only one affiliated minor league team, and that's the Vancouver Canadians, who are a mere several thousand miles away from their parent club in Toronto.
Nice and close.
Yes,
Yeah. So you're coming up on your 200th episode, is that correct?
yes, that's right.
And this is a weekly podcast, so you're putting something out every week or almost every week, right?
Every week. I haven't missed a week
Haven't missed a
since
week.
I debuted in late 2000. Actually, I'm going to knock on wood over here with that. But yeah, I debuted in late 2001, December of 2001, 2021, I should say, and I have not missed a week.
I think it's pretty funny. The way that we met originally was at a Schaumburg Boomers game over the
Oh,
summer. I was invited out by Donnie Wise, if anybody here knows Donnie. And I'm sitting there talking to him, and behind me I hear a voice, and I'm like, wait a second, I'm pretty sure that's Paul Caputo. And he is sitting right behind me. And Ranger Amy was there with you. And all of a sudden you're starting to talk about the boomers. What's a boomer? It's some kind of prairie chicken.
yeah.
And you're like actually taping the episode while you're in the stands at the ball game. It was amazing. And then I was able to listen to it later. And I'm like, it's magical. So if anybody here hasn't listened to Paul's podcast, you got to do it. It's awesome.
Thank you, John.
So one of the other things I pick up too on listening to the podcast is that you and your friends do something on a yearly basis called Baseball Palooza. I don't
Yeah.
know if I spelled that properly. I don't know if
Uh,
this is a picture from a Baseball Palooza, but I found it on your Blue Sky page. And this kind of is at a little bit of an intersection where my interests are. I can tell that what you're doing is you're squatting over the home plate marker for Old Mile High Stadium. And part of what I love doing is not only going to baseball games, but also seeing historical markers, statues, things like this. So, as part of your baseball paloozas, are you also incorporating historical elements or sites into it?
we certainly have, and we certainly do when we can. This is not a picture from Baseball Palooza. This is Eric the Peanut Guy, who is the on-field MC and so much more for the Tri-City Dust Devils. He is minor league baseball glitterati right here. He is a minor league baseball celebrity. He came to Colorado and stayed with us. He and his wife Karina stayed with us, and he is a baseball tourist for sure. And so he absolutely wanted to see the original Denver Bears home plate, which is basically spray painted in the spot where it originally existed in the parking lot of the now the Broncos stadium, which I guess we're building another Broncos stadium, and so hopefully that marker stays in place. I hope that's not affected by the new stadium that we're going to have. But for Baseball Palooza, yes, you spelled it right. It is something I've been doing since 2015 with my college buddies, who are there's 9 or 10 of us on any given year, and we pick four ballparks, 4 different minor league ballparks The only major league game we've ever seen on Baseball Palooza was at Wrigley, actually, because we were in the Chicagoland area and we said, there are guys who haven't been to Wrigley. You got to experience Wrigley at least once. Um, so it is 4 games in 4 days, Thursday through Sunday, and then when we can, we will incorporate some sort of historical or baseball site into it. That includes we have visited the Negro Leagues. Oh, look at you! You anticipated what I was going to say here. We got to meet Bob Kendrick at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City. We went to the Louisville, I should say, Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. Um, what else? I'm trying to think. We've done, like I said, we've done this for 10 years. We missed when we were in Iowa. We're not able to get to the Field of Dreams, but we do try to get to historical sites, historical markers when we can, and not just baseball. When we were in Louisville, we went to the Muhammad Ali Center. That was really spectacular. And next year, we're going to try to be in upstate New York, and we're going to try to hit Cooperstown because some of the guys have not been to Cooperstown. For me, it's been probably about 15, 20 years since I was last there. So yes, we do try to incorporate history into our trips.
And it looks like, and I'm sure this isn't necessarily a baseball palooza either, but I found this picture of you and your dad, 2022 World Series,
Yeah,
getting to see the Phillies. Unfortunately, I don't know if the game that you were at, if they won or not, but
they
um,
did. This was
okay, good.
game three of the 2022 World Series. It was meant to be on Halloween. It was meant to be October 31st. In 2022. And my brother is a season ticket holder with the Phillies, and he is able to get us access to things like this. I'm hoping to go to the All-Star game next year in Philly in 2026. But that is my dad, age 84, and I had never been to any World Series game, let alone a Phillies World Series. And I think that was true of my dad as well. So it got rained out on the 31st. We kind of knew it was going to get rained out, but we thought the vibe is just going to be so much fun to go down to Citizens Bank Park and be there for a World Series game. We went down there, had dinner, and then while we're eating dinner on the concourse, we get the notice that the game's been postponed till the next day. So then we go home and we come back the next day. It was game three. The Phillies hit 5 home runs and won 7-0. It is one of my all-time favorite baseball experiences, maybe number one, uh, right just ahead of because of the emotional involvement. I don't know if this is in your list of questions, John, but one of my all-time, my like maybe a very close number two, was getting to see a two Hanshin Tiger games in Japan. That was an incredible experience going to see Japanese baseball. So
Nice. And I,
yeah.
I read an article, I think that was posted on the minor league website. And it just basically said, at some point, my true love is going to baseball games with family and friends.
Mm.
And you share a passion with, I'm sure, most of the people on the call tonight, that there's nothing better than being in a ball game, especially with buddies, family members, your dad, whoever, and so forth. But you had an occasion once with your daughter, right, where she got to get onto the field with the San Diego Chicken.
Yeah, this was years ago. This was 2013, 2014, back when the before the Rocky Mountain Vibes, we had the Colorado Springs Sky Sox for many years. That's a historic minor league team that is no more. But the Sky Sox at that time, they were the AAA affiliate of the Colorado Rockies, I believe. Oh, I may have that wrong. I think they were the Rockies affiliate in back then in 2013, 2014. We got to the game way early because that is what I do. I always want to get to ballparks and explore the ballpark and sort of wander around. So we got there super early, and I was walking around with my daughter who was maybe like 5 or 6 at the time, and this very tall gentleman came up to us as a family, and he said to my daughter Maya, who was a freshman at American University now, by the way, he came up to us and he said, "Would you like to dress as a baby San Diego chicken and go out on the field with the San Diego chicken? How would you like to be a baby chick?" And he asked that of her and not of her parents, and she just recoiled and said no. And he said, "Okay, well, thanks for it." And I said, "Wait, wait, 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 wait." And I went to Maya and I was like, "Maya, this would be a lot of fun, and this would be." What I was really thinking was, "Maya, your father's entire existence has led to this moment right here. Please, please, please do this." And so she thought about it and she said, "Okay, okay, I'll do it." And so, they gave us the instructions, at the end of the second inning, go over here and you'll be walked down to the sort of the underneath of the ballpark and we'll get you all dressed up. And we met the gentleman who actually is the San Diego Chicken, the famous chicken he is officially. He's not the San Diego Chicken, I think officially. I forgot what it is exactly, but it's something like he's the famous chicken. The reason he was there at all was because it was a fireworks game. It was a 4th of July game, and then there was a fire ban because there was a drought. And so they weren't allowed, they thought they were not going to be allowed to set off fireworks. And so they had all these people who had bought tickets for this, special occasion game. They had sold out. So they brought in the famous chicken to be, sort of the consolation prize for people who weren't going to get to see fireworks. And then the ban was lifted and they already had the San Diego Chicken lined up. And so anyway, they brought us under the ballpark, and sure enough, they dressed Maya and 3 other kids up as little baby San Diego chickens. And then after, I don't know, the 5th or 6th inning or the middle of the 5th or 6th inning, the routine was whatever the chicken did, the kids would do after him. And so he did like the finger whammies at the opposing team. And the one that got the biggest laugh was he ran out and he lifted his leg like he was peeing on the umpire. And Maya was the first of these 4 kids, and she lifted her leg and the place like erupted, right? Like it was just like, and they thought it was so funny. And so all the kids lifted their legs and everybody laughed, but Maya always got the biggest laugh because she was first. And then she got to pick out one gift from the San Diego Chicken store afterwards. And I thought for sure she was going to pick out the bobblehead because that's what I wanted. And she said no, she wanted the hat that made her look like the San Diego Chicken, which she then wore until it didn't fit anymore. She wore that thing ragged basically. And but the next morning at breakfast, we were talking about just whatever, and she just says out of nowhere, she says, "Do you remember last night when I was famous?" So it's one of my favorite baseball stories and one of my favorite Maya stories. My kids couldn't care less about baseball, by the way. Like I failed as a father in raising children who cared about baseball, but they'll at least go to games with me because I buy them ice cream, even now at age 21 and 18.
This is probably then an unfair question based on the team that you root for,
Yeah.
but Philly Fanatic or San Diego Chicken, which do you think is the better mascot?
I'm almost offended by the question, actually. It's such a no-brainer that the Philly Fanatic is the best mascot in all of sports, let alone baseball. So I'm going to give you a pass on that one, John, but it's an offensive question.
Okay. But I do like that the chicken's logo does include an Easter egg, which is actually an egg, which I
It's
think is
actually an
really
egg.
clever.
The
So
San Diego Chicken is very good. I don't mean to overstate my affinity for the Fanatic, but I think my homerism there is interfering with my ability to answer that question objectively.
and so I know that the helmets, the ice cream helmets, are something that you mentioned a little bit earlier. I know I've seen photos of a helmet with the Fanatic on it.
Oh
Would
yeah,
assume that that's one that's part of your collection, but
yeah.
you said you're nearly 600 helmets at this point?
Yes. So this picture was taken about 5 years ago. And I don't know if you can see there's a little more white in my beard now than there was back then. But yeah, this is a picture that I took pretty soon after I moved into the house where I live right now. And that stack, I could probably unplug and walk you out to the basement here. That stack is about a third of what's out there right now. There's that they go up to about 8 high, and I have them organized by classification from Major League all the way down to Single A and Independent Professional and Collegiate Summer League.
And you're probably also looking for the alternate logos when the teams have several different ones during the year, things like that, right?
There are certain teams that are really good at putting out new helmets all the time, and it's driving me crazy. It used to be they weren't doing that, and then they discovered that there were people like me, I think, who like to collect all of them. And so, yeah, the I think I probably have like 8 or 10 different Phillies ones. I have like 8 or 10 different Mets ones. I have a bunch from, say, the Portland Sea Dogs. Hartford Yard Goats have put out a bunch. So yeah, there are a number of teams who are on to people like me and keep putting new ones out that they make us track down.
And what was it about the ice cream helmet itself that you were drawn to?
Uh, Honestly, the stories of the logos, right? Like I love it's it's not so much the shape of the helmet or it's there's nothing about even the fact that you serve ice cream in them, like that's not exactly the thing. Like I love that they all feature the logos in a way that I can display them in my home when people come over and they come downstairs to the basement and when I finished my basement and when I moved into this house, I showed the guy who was doing the work. I was like, look, I want to put a shelf. It's a 36-foot wall right there. And I said, I was like, I want to build a shelf where I can put these on them. And I held up one of my helmets. And he said, okay, okay. And sure enough, he built this shelf that runs the length of that wall. And it's one of the things that would make it really sad to ever move away from this house because I don't think any other house is going to have something like that where I can display these helmets. But the short answer to your question is I love talking about the logos, and this is a great way to display them. And very often, the first two things that people will do is they will find their team in the Major League collection, and then they will just wander down the row looking for interesting ones. And I always need to make sure I've brushed up on them too, because I'll always get what's this one, what's this one, this one, and like the farther to the right you get in this shelf, the more obscure they become. And so I always try to make sure I've brushed up on what they all are. Cheaper than a fitted logo hat, that is for sure.
I've got a buddy in Cleveland. I don't know if you know Jason Jennings.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He and
Okay.
I, we have been to a Lake County Captains game together.
Okay, yes, I've been to it was a then Indians game and the Lake Erie Crushers, I think is
Oh yeah,
yeah, Frontier League team with him. But
yeah,
one of the fun things, I don't necessarily collect these helmets. I have a bunch of them only because I kept them and did not throw them out, but I don't
yeah.
actively seek them. But one of the things that I love doing for him is going to a ballpark, taking a picture. Hey, do you need this one? And
Yep.
we usually are able to make an exchange. He sends me some baseball cards, usually
Ah.
Cubs, and I send him some helmets. But ones that he liked were
Oh yeah.
this is a picture I found of the Rockies. These are really cool. Like is that their City Connect?
It is their former City Connect. Yeah,
Former
I
City
haven't I
Connect.
haven't
Okay.
seen their new City Connects on a helmet yet.
And the one that I just got for him this year
Oh yeah.
was the Cubs. He said, "Oh, that one's pretty sought after." So
Yeah.
I was able to get it. And the great part was, I went up to the stand and I told the guy, and this is what I'll do for him sometimes is like I maybe I don't want the ice cream. I'll be like, I'll pay for the helmet, but just so I don't have to wash it out.
Yeah.
The guy's like, "Oh, you don't want ice cream? Here, just have it."
Yep.
So I got it for free instead of spending $10 on it. But
I, I have had that happen before. The Oklahoma City Dodgers once just handed me because they had like three or four different ones, and I said I don't need to eat that much ice cream. I did want at least one with ice cream. I was like I don't need that much ice cream, and they were just like here, just take them. Sometimes they'll do that. Sometimes they won't. I do have that Cubs one thanks to a friend who found it and sent it to me. And then I was actually just in Chicago for the Curve Brim Media meetup, and we went to a game at Wrigley, and I looked for those and couldn't find them. So I was actually because I know that they, as Jason says, they are indeed highly sought after. So I was glad that I already had one from someone who had been to the game and found it for me. But I do have those friends in my life. They are definitely enablers who every time they go to a game they send me a picture. I'll tell you one of my prized possessions is I don't know if you all are familiar with the website Baseball Mapper, but Baseball Mapper is if you're planning a road trip or if you're going on a work trip and you want to see which baseball teams are nearby, Baseball Mapper is an absolutely fantastic website for that. I spend way too much of my time on it. Um, but one of my friends from Baseball Mapper, Patrick Newt, went to the debut of the Erie Moon Mammoths, which was the team that was renamed by John Oliver's TV show Last Week Tonight. And he got me a helmet. He got me an Erie Moon Mammoths helmet. And so that is very much a prized possession, a super rare ice cream helmet there.
I know some collectors, Jason, for instance, will ask me, is that logo a sticker or is
Uh-huh.
it printed on there? Because I think
Yeah.
he's trying to collect both versions if
Mm.
there are more than one version. Are you that hardcore or are you just looking for a new logo?
Yeah, I am not overly concerned with whether it's a decal or a sticker. I do have, like I have a couple of different Cubs ones where the Cubs see, in one of them it's bigger and but a thinner stroke width in terms of the design. And then there's like somewhere that it's like a thicker stroke width but a smaller C. And so I sometimes have to get pretty nuanced about like, okay, are these two actually different? I have some Cleveland. I have some old Cleveland ones where it's like it's the same logo. It's the old Chief Wahoo logo, and one's like a dark navy blue and the other one's like a lighter color, and I have to determine like, okay, are these different enough to both be on the shelf? Because I only put unique ones on the shelf. So I think Jason and I could probably have a real conversation about like what actually qualifies these as being unique, distinct from one another.
Yeah, and I just think back to my first experience ever with a baseball helmet was at a Ground Round restaurant here in Melrose Park. And I
Yeah,
remember my mom was like, "Oh, it comes in a baseball helmet." And she knew that I love baseball.
yeah.
I said, "Oh, Mom, I sure hope I get the Cubs." And then they came back with a Padres helmet. So I'm
What?
like, it must have been a White Sox fan as the waitress, but whatever.
I was I remember them from Baskin Robbins. I remember going to Baskin Robbins as a kid and they would have them there. I was just in Cincinnati for work and they we went to a place called Grater's, which is apparently a signature ice cream experience in Cincinnati. And they had them there. They had Major League helmets there. My early memories of them are the maroon ones with the Phillies, the old Phillies P that has the baseball in the counter form there. And it was that we used to get those at Veteran Stadium when I was a kid.
So do you have in your collection now sentimental favorites, ones that you've had for a long time, logos that you just love? I know you mentioned the Moon Mammoths one, but that's
Yeah,
a special one. But
yeah.
what are some of your other favorites?
So the one that actually got me started on being a collector, there's one that I actually point to where I say, okay, I'm actually collecting these now. Like this is a thing that I would actually seek out. Was from your Chicago Cubs. It was I hope I get the year right. I believe it was 2012 that they were celebrating the 100th anniversary of Wrigley Field. Do I have that right?
I think 2004 or 2014.
14, is that
Yeah.
actually makes
Yep.
more sense
Yep.
in my timeline anyway. But it was the first time I had been to a major league ballpark that had a helmet that I didn't already have. Um, and it was their 100 years of Wrigley Field helmet instead of the regular Cubs helmet. And I remember I got there early. It was cold, but I liked the ice cream in a helmet. That was sort of a tradition for me anyway. And I got the Wrigley Field helmet instead of the Cubs helmet. And there was this moment of like, huh, that's pretty cool. And because I had some, like it was sort of like you probably, John, where I had some, but it wasn't necessarily a collection. As we know from the podcaster and C-list celebrity John Hodgman, the difference between a hoarder and a collector is a display case. I had all my helmets on a shelf in the kitchen, and I just used them to eat ice cream. And so switching from hoarding to collecting, I brought them out and put them on display in my house. And one of the first ones that made me really want to display them was that Cubs one. So that one's special to me. Many of these helmets are ones that friends would send me, or like Anna DiTomaso, who hosts a terrific podcast called The Baseball Bucket List. If you haven't heard that podcast, you absolutely should listen to it. Um, she went to a World Series game when the Rays and it was the Ray it was the Ranger oh, it was the Rangers and the Dodgers, and she went to a game and she got me a gold helmet from the World Series, and that's a really cool one. I'm super glad to have that one. um did I get that right? Did the Rangers and the Dodgers play each other? I hope I didn't just screw that up, but it was definitely a World Series helmet that was gold and it had the Rangers on it. um So that's, when people find the really unique ones and send them to me, those are the ones that I love. I love tracking down because, those tell a story.
And are there in the worlds of helmet collecting, are there holy grails? Is there one that you know exists and you've never been able to find, or one that you just heard exists but you've never been able to see it?
So that question of whether they exist is always a good one, right? Like, so I had heard that the Las Vegas 51s, who are no more, they are the Las Vegas Aviators now, but they played at Cashman Park, and they were a Mets affiliate for many years. And they were a Dodgers affiliate and a Mets affiliate. And I had been to that ballpark. It's now they don't play there anymore. They moved to a different ballpark in Summerlin, but I was never able to find a Las Vegas 51's ice cream helmet. And I one time mentioned that I don't know if it was on my podcast or if I was on somebody else's podcast, but I mentioned that. And there's a gentleman named Eric Lichtenberg out there in the world who makes custom ice cream helmets. And he heard me say that my white whale was the Las Vegas 51's. They had an alien head for it was like an alien combination alien head and baseball. And they were named obviously for Area 51, about 80 miles away from Las Vegas. And he heard me say that was my white whale that I was never able to track down a Las Vegas 51's helmet. And so he made one for me and he sent it to me, and it looks like the real thing, right? Like you would never know that I was not eating ice cream out of that at the ballpark. So I don't know if I can, I don't know how much that counts, right? Like, is that if I were getting audited, right, would that count towards the collection? I don't know, but I love it. I'm glad to have it. So that's the closest I have. There are there's some great logos out there for teams who don't have helmets, and it's always a little disappointing. Um, I was one time visiting the Vermont Lake Monsters, and I have several Vermont Lake Monsters helmets. But I was with my daughter Maya, who has come up a couple of times here, and we were in their team store, and I was talking to the general manager of the team, and I said, "Oh, do you guys?" It was during the off season. We were doing college visits, so it was last March or May. And I said, "Do you have any ice cream helmets?" And he said, "No." He said, "I just couldn't do like the single-use plastics anymore." And my daughter Maya, who agrees with him, right, absolutely like on the same page from an environmental perspective, chimes in. She's like, "It's only single use if you only use it once." And I was like, "That's perfect because we got a kitchen shelf full of them and we use them for ice cream still too."
Do you run them through the dishwasher then? Do the logos come off? I've never thought to do that.
Some of them do, yes.
Yeah.
And because they're just living out their life's purpose, I don't mind if the logos come off the ones that are just for everyday ice cream eating use. I don't mind if the logos come off them. That's why the shelf is here for the ones that are going to be part of the permanent collection.
And again, I know I keep mentioning for people that haven't listened to your podcast, one of the most fun parts of it is the end because you've mentioned Dan Simon. Dan Simon comes back and he'll do a Studio Simon Stumper where he will ask you a question that is sometimes easy to figure out, sometimes difficult to figure out. Sometimes during the episode, you may have talked about things that help a listener kind of figure out what it is. But I just thought that we might do one here to kind of wrap things up here.
Oh,
So
okay.
in Illinois, there were teams that were wood bat college teams. And there's three logos here: DuPage Drones, the Will County Cracker Jacks, and the DeKalb County Barbs. Each of these may or may not have existed. One of
Huh.
them did not, and the other two lasted for a year or not even an entire year in their wood bat league. By looking at these logos, are you able to determine which one was a team that never existed as a college wood bat team?
So I always say to Dan that I'm going to try to suss it out. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to try to suss it out. And so I always look for any clues that might help me make some sort of decision. Uh, you all, as historians, hopefully know that the plural of Cracker Jack is Cracker Jack. There is no S. That's buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. So I will. So my first inclination is someone would have told the Will County Cracker Jacks somewhere along the way that there is no S on the end of Cracker Jack. But let's look at these here. The DuPage drones. That's pretty funny. Looks like my daughter Olivia is super into drones, and so I think she would probably like that one. And the DeKalb County Barbs. Wonder what story that would tell. The Barbs. Is there a famous prison in DeKalb County?
No, I could tell you as a graduate of Northern Illinois University in DeKalb, barbed wire was invented there. So I would
Ah,
expect that that's the connection.
I see. Now looking at the Barbs, if I were to guess about one that was the DuPage drones is the most polished visually. The Will County Cracker Jacks definitely looks like it was maybe a little clip arty, and it's a little skewed even. Like the baseball isn't a perfect circle, so that one. But then the DeKalb County Barbs, that's AI. AI put that together because the seams aren't lining up on the baseball, and there are seams missing on the right side there in that red circle. So my first instinct, and you'll John, I know that if you listen to the podcast, you know that I always go away from my first instinct, and it always comes back to bite me. But I'm gonna say that DeKalb. Thank you for gently correcting my pronunciation. DeKalb County Barbs. I'm gonna say that's the fake one because I think a real logo would have had those seams lined up and would have had the seams continue on the top right part of that red circle there. So I'm gonna go Barbs are the fake one.
Is that your final answer?
Final answer. Dan always asks me,
Okay.
and then when I get it wrong, he goes, "Well,
Well,
yeah, I got
Paul,
it
you
wrong,
are
huh?"
absolutely correct. Good
All
work.
right.
Yeah, the DuPage Drones were a team that existed for a single season in 2016.
Okay.
The Will County Cracker Jacks actually had within their coaching system for a short period of time Bob Dernier, both a
Oh,
Philadelphia and Cubs legend, and they
absolutely.
existed for 3/4 of a year in 2012. And the DeKalb Barbs is actually the name of the high school team for the high school. But
Ah,
you're absolutely correct. That is AI, which probably doesn't make anybody happy. But when I tried to do one that might try and fool you, it didn't look anywhere near it. So I had to do that. So I apologize. I know that that's not a real nice thing to do to a graphic designer,
it's
but
all right. It was the clue I needed was that when I saw that there was part of the seams were missing, I was like, that's not real. Um, it looks like maybe you told AI to do it, and then you were like, okay, AI, fix this part of it. And that's always when AI screws up is when you try to get that second round. Um, I put something on my Threads account recently where I just said, just as sort of like a little whimsical thing. I said, your minor league baseball name is your hometown plus some sort of natural or geological feature plus your favorite animal. And I said, I'll start. I'm the Fort Collins Mountain Manatees. And people took that assignment seriously. I had a whole bunch of people respond, but a number of those people who responded to that said or created the logos in AI, and some of them were pretty hard to suss out as AI. Like AI is unfortunately getting better and better at this. It sounds like we're wrapping up, so I do want to just very quickly answer Anthony's question. I like the Copa de la Diversión very much. They are Spanish language brands aimed at Spanish speaking communities in all of these various towns. I like them the most when they are actually working with those Spanish speaking communities in their hometown. And a lot of teams do quite a good job of working with the actual communities in their hometowns. And so, in general, I like the Copa brands when they are working with the local community.
yeah, and I didn't want to give you the impression we were going to end. I just wanted
Oh,
to
okay.
let everybody know here that if you're interested in baseball by design, you could find it pretty much anywhere you find your podcast content. And you could also find Paul on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Baseball by Design. So thanks, Paul. And I couldn't see because I was sharing my screen what any comments were. So I'll get back to the chat over here.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike, for the
Um,
kind comment.
okay, let's see.
You got a
Whoops.
hand up with Michael over here.
Okay, yeah. Michael, why don't you go ahead?
Thanks. Paul, this is great. art director by trade, so this is right up my alley, combining
Cool.
baseball and design. So I can't wait to check out your podcast. Um, Something that I like to do just to keep sharp on my free time is like design logos that don't even exist, on my own. Do you do anything like that in your, then you probably you don't have a lot of free time, but do you mess around like that on your own?
My background in visual communications is a lot more in like print design, layout. I thought I was going to be a poster designer in Europe when or maybe in Quebec City or something when I was in school. I consider logo design to be absolute wizardry. The people who have the ability to create logos, effective logos that sort of follow the rules and are yet unique and interesting, it's absolute wizardry to me too. So I have tried creating my own logos in the past. Um, if I do something sort of type based, it comes out maybe okay, but I don't do a lot of logo design just because it is something that to me, the challenge in logo design is in most forms of graphic design, you can take something to your client, and I'm sure you know this, Michael. You can take something to your client, and you can sort of educate your client on here's why this page layout has this item here and this item here, and there's hierarchy and there are rules and all that sort of thing. If you take a logo to a client and their first reaction is just like, there's no amount of explaining that's going to fix that, right?
Right.
And so you just have to like take your licks and come back and try again. So I am not good at sticking with that because I'll say no, like no, this is why this is a good logo. But if you show someone a logo and they don't like it, there's no convincing them to like it.
Yeah, it's a special talent for sure.
Yeah, so good on you for creating logos.
I'd see a comment from Andy Terrick. He says he washes them out and gets them signed. Do you have any autographed ones?
I do, but I have no idea who signed it. It's a yellow Bismarck Larks helmet, and it came to me signed, and I do not know who signed it. I even put it online once and said, "Does anyone know who this is?" And nobody was able to conjure any famous Bismarck Larks.
All right. Well, this has been a blast, Paul. I appreciate you meeting with us tonight. I don't see any other questions. If anybody has one more question, maybe we could fit it in, but I'm not seeing anything here. All I could say is the Baseball by Design podcast is an awful lot of fun. It's every week. You usually keep the episodes less than an hour. It's something you can listen to going back and forth somewhere in the car. And it's just been a blast talking to you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.
John, thank you so much for inviting me, and thanks everyone for hanging out. The idea that there are people in the world who want to listen to me talk about minor league baseball, it's usually something I'm inflicting on people instead of being invited to do. So, so I super appreciate that, and yeah, this has been a ton of fun, and thank you for the invitation and for all of your kind words.
And if you do find that Las Vegas 51's helmet, you know where to send it, right?
If there's a real one out there, man, that
Yep.
would be something.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Take care.
Great, thank you all.